So you have heard about single sign-on SSO so many times. So in today's video, let's try to understand what it is exactly and details about it. Watch this video till end to get some tips around SSO. So let's start. So what we have is a user or a browser which is trying to log in into an application. Let's call that application as domain 1. So you are trying to log in to that application. So this number 1 is your login request. So you are trying to access it. So when this browser sends request to domain 1, it also sends something called as cookies that it has with it. So the cookies are sent by the browser to domain 1. So that is step number 1. In step number 2, that something happens at domain 1. Domain 1 checks whether the cookie has a IDP information. I mean, it checks whether user is already logged in or not. So let's assume a negative case where the user hasn't logged in. So the domain 1 thinks that the user hasn't logged in and it needs to now get the user authenticated. But the user authentication is not with domain 1. That is something which we have outsourced to an IDP, identity provider. Okay, so we have outsourced it to IDP, and now we need to get that from IDP. So what domain 1 does over here, it already knows about IDP. So it returns a response to browser, which is step number 3, which says that you are not authenticated. It is telling user or browser you are not authenticated, and this is the redirect URL. That redirect URL is a URL to IDP login page. So it tells browser to redirect to IDP. So browser follows the instructions coming from domain 1 and redirects user to IDP. Number 4 is redirection. In number 5, which is once the user is directed, what is presented with? The login page. So over here, the user authentication happens. So you have been redirected from your domain or application or a website to a IDP login page. The authentication happens, and let's say the authentication succeeds. So as part of this, what the IDP does is it creates a token for the user, and this token is wrapped inside an envelope. So there is an envelope, and inside that there is a token. Token is not the password user has been with the user that has been authenticated with. It doesn't share that password. It's just a token saying that this is a user. So it's a signed token basically. So nobody can tamper it. And then the IDP in step number 6, it sends that information back to browser. The token is sent back to browser. Now, step number 7, which happens with browser. Okay, in step number 6, when it sends back the information, the token, it also sends back the redirect URL. Now, what is that redirect URL? Redirect URL is domain 1 again. From where this IDP knows about domain 1 URL? User in the request number 4, user had asked for redirection, as well as it had said this is my redirect URL when authentication is successful. So when the authentication happens afterward, redirect me to this URL domain 1. So step number 6, it sends back token that was generated in step number 5 as well as redirect URL. What does the browser does in step number 7? It stores that token in a cookie. Stores that token in a cookie. And step number 8 is it follows the instructions from IDP to redirect to the domain 1. Now domain 1, what it does, it is the same step as step number 2, but let's call it step number 9. Why? Step is same, but we are assuming now we got user authenticated. So what domain 1 does, it checks the cookie again coming from the browser. It looks for IDP information, same as it did in step number 2. In step number 2, it didn't find IDP information, any token, so it it redirected browser to IDP, but in step number 9, it did found a token. So what it will do, domain 1 knows nothing about token. What it does, it sends that token to IDP saying, I have received this token, step number 10. Can you please validate whether this is a valid token or a fraud? IDP, step number 11, it checks the signature of the token, it checks the user, whether the user is same and signature is not tampered with. Let's assume that, okay, it wasn't tampered with. So what IDP sends back, number 12, it sends back, okay, it's all okay. So the user is a genuine user. So now domain 1 has that information that the user has been authenticated by IDP. So domain 1 will open the access for user. So it will open the access wherever, whatever website or application it. So it responds back with the actual now response, which is step number 13, where user will be presented with a page. So this is how SSO single sign-on works. So many steps, number 13. So have you understood how simple and complex the single sign-on is? So let's revise and let's have a summary of what we did. Step number 1, user is trying to log in into domain 1. Domain 1 has IDP as its identity provider. So browser sends cookies in step number 1. Domain 1 checks the cookie in step number 2 and finds no information, authentication information. So what it does, it sends back a redirect to IDP in step number 3. So it tells browser, now go back to to IDP to get yourself authenticated, and you redirect back to me as well once the authentication is successful. So browser follows that steps. It redirects to IDP. It sends the cookie information to IDP. It also sends that once the authentication is successful, it tells IDP that, okay, once your authentication process is successful, redirect me to domain 1 in URL, which domain 1 has already replied in step number 3. IDP does the authentication. Step number 5, generates token, sends back two information. One, the token inside envelope. The second information is what it got back in the input from browser, which is a redirect URL. Step number 7, browser stores the token in cookie, and step number 8, it again redirects to domain 1. Domain 1, it is the same step as step number 2, but now we have a token information available in the cookie. Let's call it step number 9. So domain 1 checks for token information inside cookie. It finds it. Now it needs to validate whether that is a genuine token or not, because it knows nothing about token. It forwards that token to IDP. IDP validates that the validation is successful. So in step number 11, so IDP says okay in step number 12. Now domain 1 knows that this is a legitimate user. So domain 1 responds back to the browser with the appropriate page. So this is how it works. Thanks for watching my video. Let's stop today in this video. In next video, we'll explore SSO further. If you have any queries, please drop them in comments. If you would like to see some technical video, please let me know in comments. Do like my video. Till then, stay tuned to my YouTube channel. Subscribe it and see you in the next video. Bye.